67 when I met you.
And we were together for 52 years.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Just a fabulous, radical, awesome.
Yes, that's why we lived in so many places.
Yes, exactly. But you had each other.
Yes.
Every step of the way.
Yes.
Every step of the way, which is a beautiful thing. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Do you feel like as you moved into the phase of what we would probably call perimenopause, I think I was probably perimenopausal in my late 30s because I got pregnant with Taj at 41. And when I got pregnant, I remember my gynecologist saying, it's not uncommon for women who are perimenopausal to have these last little babies that are just these old eggs that are just pop out on you. And I'm wondering if you recall or you reflect on the period of time between like your late 30s, early 40s into your 50s, like anything that kind of gave you an indication, like, I'm changing again. I'm changing again as a woman, and how you felt about that.
That's a question that I had not reflected on before, and I tell you why.
Mm.
I compared myself to my sister,
Mm.
who was only a year and 4 months younger than I am. She always had severe cramps.
Mm.
And for her, there's always a lot of activity around the onset of her period.
Mm-hmm.
I never had any problem.
Mm-hmm.
So to me, as my body changed and the changes evolved, it was natural. Mm-hmm. I had no physical challenge. Mm-hmm. So I didn't think about it. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And once Herbert and I got married, we didn't have Herbie right away, but I felt like I would get pregnant. Mm-hmm. And I wasn't trying not to get pregnant. Mm-hmm. So I never gave a lot of thought to the changes in my body. Mm-hmm. Besides that, and since I didn't have cramps or anything other than the onset, mm-hmm. and I kept a very, very youthful figure mm-hmm. until shortly after I turned 65. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So there were no significant changes in my body. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So I just never gave it a lot of thought mm-hmm. on me. Mm-hmm. Mm-mm.
I've been thinking a lot about that for my mom. I think that my parents got separated when she was about 49, 50.
She was young.
Mm-hmm. And I think about that period of also potentially being a period of change in a lot of ways. And I just think as we grow older as Black women, like how we navigate change, mm-hmm. changes in our body, changes in our circumstances, changes in our families. How old were you when you and Papa Herb moved back to Durham?
We moved back to Durham in 1995.
Okay.
So
you were 65?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It was shortly after I retired.
Mm-hmm. What was that like for you?
Moving back to Durham.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we were pushed out of Columbia, Maryland
mm-hmm.
by the white power structure. Mm-hmm. And I was employed in D.C. as a teacher. Herb was pastoring a suburban church of upper middle class Black folk mm-hmm. who were afraid of the white supremacy system there. Mm-hmm. So he got voted out. Mm-hmm. I stayed behind so that our older son could finish the school year mm-hmm. without uprooting him. And at the end of the school year, I could retire. So that's what I did. Mm-hmm. And Herb moved back before mm-hmm. I did. Mm-hmm. And he relocated to this house. Mm-hmm. We had bought this house. And he lived here for a while with just bedroom furniture and kitchen furnishings. Nothing else.
Nothing else.
Nothing else.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And then at the end of the school year, I moved here to join him. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
This house is amazing.
Yes, it is.
It's beautiful. I love everything that's in the house. I love the mask on the walls and all the pictures. And you have so many books.
Oh, yeah. We joke about being book poor.
Yes.
We both were readers.
Mm-hmm.
But when you say you love this house, I was thinking about all of the skills of the Black craftsmen. This house was on the cover of Home and Garden magazine.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
It certainly wasn't. When my older son worked for that company out in Iowa, he found information on it
Mm-hmm.
and sent it to me because I didn't know that.
Mm-hmm.
But this house is solid. It's a certified symbol
Mm-hmm.
of the skills of Black craftspersons.
Absolutely.
You don't find many houses built like this now.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
The floors are even double.
Mm-hmm.
These floors that you see are vertical,
Mm-hmm.
but if you go downstairs in the basement and
Mm-hmm.
look up,
Mm-hmm.
they're diagonal,
Oh,
and you don't hear creaking.
no.
When I walk across the floor, you don't hear it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't even know there was such a thing as
Oh,
double floors.
yes.
Huh.
And these are plastered walls. They're
Uh-huh.
not sheetrock.
Huh. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
They
Definitely-
represent the best
The
in
best.
Black craftsmanship.
Right. Well, that makes a lot of sense that you all would live in a house that represents the best. That doesn't surprise me. We're getting ready to come to an end, but I'm really curious about how you and Papa Herb started to become students of African history and how you got linked up into this international group of people who were dedicated to that.
And you know what?
Hmm.
I value that experience more than I do any other educational experience
Mm-hmm.
because my exposure to the Black scholars at whose feet I sat
Mm-hmm.
helped me to understand that the narrative that this country is built upon
Mm-hmm.
is a lie,
Mm-hmm.
and that they had not given credit to classical ancient African civilizations.
Mm-hmm.
We joined that international study group when we lived in Columbia, Maryland, I
Mhm.
believe it
Mhm.
was. And it started out internationally, but those of us who were committed to it, and it was an organization that was feared,
Mm-hmm.
and you wouldn't be surprised because Europeans didn't want you to unravel that lie.
Mm-hmm.
Now they don't try to hide it because the scholars who unravel that lie at whose feet I sat were some who had graduated from the country's highest, what do they call themselves?
The Ivy League?
Ivy League
Yes,
is
ma'am.
what I was trying to think of.
Mhm.
Harvard, Yale,
Mm-hmm.
you name it. But then they were thinkers,
Mm-hmm.
and they concluded there's something wrong with this narrative.
Mm-hmm.
And they began to trace the enslavement of Africans
Mhm.
back to Africa.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that's when they began to learn
Mhm.
about the classical African civilizations.
Mm-hmm.
Because at that time, you didn't find anything like that
Mm-hmm.
in any formal education.
Mm-hmm.
So as they learned and challenged and opened us up to the truth, you go through a transformation.
You do.
And when I learned that I had been educated around a myth,
Mm-hmm.
a fallacy, I shook all of that
Mm-hmm.
and I let myself evolve into who my true identity is.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And took pride in it.
Mm-hmm.
Because I used to get my hair straightened,
Mm-hmm.
trying to look like Veronica Lake.
Oh.
You wouldn't remember that.
I
image.
used to watch Turner Classic Movies. I know who Veronica Lake is.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am. Mm-hmm.
Well, you know what? And I had to forgive myself for that because I was successfully brainwashed.
Yeah.
Yeah. The Association for the Study of Classical African Civilizations was my rebirth.
Mm.
And I haven't looked back since.
I love that.
And I don't look up to anybody. I respect people who deserve respect, but I don't have any icons. I don't get excited about anybody who's supposed to be popular or whatever. I don't get excited about the leaders of this country because I know who I am and I know where my roots lie. And that's back in ancient Africa, which is the birthplace of all human life. Mm-hmm. Even if you're blue-eyed blonde Norwegians, you just migrated away from the equator and away from the sunshine. And so that's why I tell Europeans you are melanin deficient.
I love when you do that. I know it stresses them all the way out. And
I have to.
Yes.
Because they try to make us think that the more highly melanated we are, the more inferior we are. And that script had to be flipped. But thankfully, some of the groups I go into now that have a lot of Europeans in it, I actually have gotten a few of them to begin to say, and they are not ridiculing me. They'll say, Mrs. Eaton reminds us that we are melanin deficient. I say, and you also must remember that it was your definition of the division of people by the degree of melanin in their skin. I said, so I'm using your definition to tell you it has a big flaw, that it has no scientific basis.
Absolutely. Well, that actually kind of brings me, ironically, to my last question, or a thought and a question. I think the same rewriting the narrative is necessary for us as Black women.
Very much so.
As necessary for us as Black women who are aging.
Yes.
This country loves to create traps.
Yes.
Right. So people will trap you in a racist trap or a classist trap. I think.
Or age.
And you and I have had several conversations about the things that you've been experiencing with your health and your body and your ability to still have power over your body, for you to have bodily autonomy at 88, almost 89.
Yes.
And I think that I want people to think more about that, how we shift that narrative. I think that in this country, when we talk about bodily autonomy, we are typically talking about women who are of age to give birth to babies, whether they choose to or not. And we're not talking about bodily autonomy for girls, and we're not talking about bodily autonomy for elders.
Yeah.
And I really want to create a space to do that narrative shift. And so this is a two-part question. I would like for you to share with us things that you feel like you're still learning right now. And then I have my last question, which will be your offering to the Black Girl's Guide to Surviving Menopause.
I think when we cease to learn at any chronology, that we cease to live. Because the universe continues to unfold. And if we open ourselves to the unfolding and learn, we maintain a balance. And that is what I think and hope that I am doing. I'm still learning. I still get excited about learning.
What's the last thing you felt really excited about? Like, I'm really enjoying this.
I am really enjoying, and I don't want to sound arrogant, but I am really enjoying that I can go into a mixed group and I communicate a validity in my speech. And people who have described themselves as being superior really do listen. And I can tell. I can tell by body language. And now they have begun to affirm what I say. And I'm enjoying that. And the main reason I'm enjoying it, Omi, is because chronologically, I have moved past even the twilight. Because given the law of averages, people don't live very, very long now, and especially Black people. Because